next event is going to be the Sasquatch calling contest. So if you're interested in giving a hoop and a holler, and then we'll vote for who did the best one, come on up. Anybody? There we go. We might just have an individual winner. Okay, we're just going to give a couple more people to see if anybody else wants to come in. Oh, here we go. We got 2 more coming. You got some competition, young man.
How you doing?
What's your name?
Oh, thank you.
My name is Bacon. Remember me?
Oh, you won last year. You're the reigning champion. Oh, you guys are in trouble. He won last year. Yeah. Come on up.
Good.
All right. There we go.
Nice to meet you.
Check. Okay, we got 2 mics that are good too. All right, so the reigning champion, come over here on this side. We'll go with you last, and then the rest of it are going to go right down through here. Anybody else want to give it a shot? Come on up. Okay, here's the reigning champion. All right, you guys, give it your best Sasquatch call. Here we go. Whoa! Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, we only got it.
Really good.
Should be around.
Okay, here we go. This is the next one.
They should be around 9 kilometers. There we go. Excelente. Looks good to see you, buddy.
I don't know if I can do this because the trigger.
We gotta go. Yeah, I need some eat and
This is the one I'm going to say I'm going to pass it. I'm going to the bathroom.
oh yeah, we're just gonna be at the booth. I'll catch you guys. All right, good to see you.
Cheers, good to see you, Dan. We'll probably eat some more food.
I do it when I'm mushroom picking up a mat right here in the fall. Pretty steep ground.
Oh, I love it. That's great. That was kind of like yours. Okay, here we go. The reigning champion is going to give it his best. One more time. Awesome. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. You guys are going to vote out there, and I'm going to give my hoodie again. And there we go. Okay, just lots of cheering and clapping for your favorite one. Here we go, right here. Awesome. Right here. Awesome. Here. Right here. And right here. And to the reigning champion. Come over here, it's between you 2 again. All right, it's gonna have a little shootout right here. All right, let's do this one more time, right here. And right here. Are you sure? You won one already. All right, who do you think won? Here or here? Let's go here. Okay, here. Okay, we'll go here. We're gonna go here. All right. Come back next year. All right. Good job, everybody. And there we go, Sasquatch. Awesome. All right, come over to the table and you can get yourself a hoodie. You want a black or a gray one?
Have fun.
I got a great hat.
Get you a hoodie real quick. You said gray or black?
That'd be great.
All right. And there you go. you go.
Thank you.
And if you hook up with me or ask one of the speakers to sign it, just grab a Sharpie and you can do that on the back of it. Like right
sure.
there. Yeah, this goes right on the back here. Right up in that area right there. It sticks really well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good job. Thanks for coming. All right. Okay, now we're going to do the public forum, and if you got a Sasquatch story, I really want you to come up and share that with everybody up here. And I know some of you have been sticking around to do it, and who wants to be the first one to go? Anybody? No, we had some people here that came up to me and asked me if they wanted to do it. You want to tell your story? Come on up.
Hi everybody, my name is Paula, and that's my husband Ron. We're from Humboldt, well, we originally from Humboldt County, which is where we had our sighting, and it was about a year ago. We were heading back from Siskiyou County. We were planning on moving, and we were headed home, and we were just a few miles out of Blue Lake, California. Must have been around 11 o'clock at night, and we're driving down 299, and the headlights hit something coming down the hillside, crossed the road, and then went over the ravine. And in my mind, I'm going, okay, that's not a deer, that's not a bear, that's definitely not a person. And the only thing I could think of was, well, that's Bigfoot, but then, you know, that's not logical, but it had that silhouette that you always see with that big thigh, and he was kind of like bent over like this, and that's, I mean, when I even say it to myself, I think I sound nuts, but I was quiet, and I didn't say anything because I'm processing it in my head. And then after about maybe 10, 15 seconds, my husband said, "Did you see something?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what did you see?" So I explained to him what I saw. And his recollection is, well, his description is slightly bit different than mine. But neither of us could pinpoint what it was. It crossed the road in a matter of seconds. It wasn't running. It was just taking big steps across the road, and before you know it, it was gone. But like I said, it had that typical silhouette of a Bigfoot. It had a big thigh, and I just saw the leg, and it was upright, so it wasn't like a bear walking on fours. It was definitely upright, and it was hairy. And so, like I said, I don't know exactly what it was, but that's the first thing my mind thought of, trying to put all the pieces together. And my husband has a little bit more to add to his description, but that's my own personal story from a year ago.
Well, that's awesome. And was it daytime or nighttime?
Nighttime. It was 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow. So,
See, it's just the headlights hit it.
yeah.
So neither of us saw it for very long or very well, because it was just the headlights of the car. It was maybe, how far ahead of us do you think?
No, it wasn't far. It was no further than from here to the walls when it.
That's a close encounter.
Well, it happened so fast. We didn't even really slow down. It was like.
It was up ahead, and then it was gone, and then it was over the hill.
Yeah, it went over a small railing and went over the bank.
It sounds almost like the Centralia one that just happened here. I got an email from somebody driving up the I-5 corridor right out here, and they saw something go from the west side of the freeway, so that means it crossed the southbound freeway and the northbound freeway and went up that embankment right there in Centralia. I haven't been to the location. I just got here, so I was going to go check it out, but I had to set up a lot of equipment and help out, get everything ready, but I didn't get to go up and do a follow-up investigation on it. But I was hoping they were going to come here, because we try to do as much advertising about it as possible to get everybody to come out and share their stories. And it's hard for some people to come up and talk on stage and share, you know, an experience that they've had that's, you know. Well, there was a guy who was just here, and he came up and told his story to Jeff, and I was standing right next to Jeff, and I overheard him what they were talking about, and he had a really compelling story, and he's just a shy guy. He didn't want to, and he's a big man, he's like 6'2", 6'3", and he didn't want to come back and tell the story, but I was encouraging him to do it, because the more we get people to talk about their experience and their story, the more we're going to find out about Sasquatch. And I really believe that. I mean, they're out there. We just need to know more about it and how they operate and what they're doing. I know I can tell you a story when I did a public forum up in Darrington, Washington. How many people know where Darrington, Washington is? Wow. That's pretty good. Okay. If you can imagine, up in Darrington, Washington, they have like a Grange Hall, and we had our meeting in a Grange Hall. A retired sheriff came and told his story, two encounters he had. One, two girls were driving home from work in their station wagon and saw a Sasquatch cross a farm, cross the road. They slammed on the brakes, stopped, daytime sighting, got on the phone, reported it to the sheriff's 911. The sheriff came out. He did the follow-up report with the two girls, and he went to the location, and guess what was at the location? The Sasquatch was still there. And he did a report on it. And then he had another one, and it was very similar in the same area, almost like about 10 miles away in this area in Darrington, and had another encounter. And he came to the public forum and shared it with me, but he didn't really want to talk too much about it because he was still working, and he said he was retiring in 2 years, but he said he kind of said keep it quiet, and he didn't really want to affect his job, you know, but he was retiring in 2 years, but he did share it with me. And I thought that was just really, really great, because you're hearing a story from a guy who had been in the sheriff's office for a long time, probably 15, 20 years, and he's getting ready to retire, and he told his story at the Darrington Public Forum. And when I heard him tell his story, it made the hair on my neck stand up, hearing them talk about it, and with the girls and their experience. So that's really great. Thank you for coming up.
And anybody who, it's not easy to talk to people because they look at you kind of funny, like, yeah, right, whatever. But the more people that do talk, then more dots can be connected and commonalities can be, brought together. Like, where you saw it, the time you saw it, and then more people speak up, then,
That's the idea, yeah.
Facts.
That's what the public forum is for talking Squatch, is so if you guys have had encounters, just come up and share it. I know it's hard to do, but once you've done it, you're going to feel a lot better. It takes a little bit off.
We're with a common ground now.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. All right. We've got some more people coming up. Fantastic. I think you talked last year, did you?
I did.
Yeah.
So if you were here last year, you heard me. I'm in Sasquatch Chronicles episode 102, about 30 minutes in after the phone call to Texas. I'm a fish and wildlife professional, referred to as MT, because after I went public with my sighting, I was fired 2 weeks later without cause and unemployed for 5 years. And you guys, your panel, you brought up some old memories. When I was 6 years old, our family used to take a 2-week vacation in August because my dad worked hard, and 1 week at the Oregon coast and 1 week up in the mountains to go trout fishing. And my dad liked to take us to House Rock Camp on the San Am River. Now, I'm a kid who used to sleepwalk. I was once found in the front yard in my bare feet in my pajamas staring up at the stars. And my mom came out and got me, and I got my hands up going, "Don't leave me." And when my mom tried to bring me in the house, I said, "I want to go home." So I've seen UFOs over transparent triangular UFO over Portland, Oregon, and broad daylight. That's a different story for a different time. But when I was 6, my parents would zip me up in the tent with my mom and my sister and my baby brother, so I felt like the baby because I slept walk, and they always had to go looking for me. And I convinced my parents to let me sleep with the big older boys under a plastic lean-to tent. And my brothers were both Boy Scouts, so they thought, well, as long as I put my sleeping bag between the older boys, they'll keep an eye on me. Well, I woke up waist deep. Oh, and I should tell you, because I got to tell you something about my 10-foot, 12-foot tall Bigfoot sighting that I've never told before, because it's got a woo factor, and I'm a science teacher, and it really bugs me.
Let's hear it.
But anyways, I inherited the ability from my mom for premonition dreams. I see bad stuff that comes true like a week later. See my brother get hit by a bicycle. I have the same, or hit by a car when he's on a bike. I have the same nightmare for 3 weeks until he gets hit by a drunk driver on a car. He didn't get killed, but my mother had the same thing, and she dreamed that I was going to sleepwalk into a river and drown. So my parents put off our vacation for 3 months in the summer. They finally went to go because Mom quit having the dreams. And that was the night I sleptwalked into the middle of the Santa Ana River, woke up waist deep in the water at 6 years old, soaking wet, shivering, not sure why I was standing out in the river, crawled up underneath where a creek goes in the river. There was a log across the little draw, and I fell asleep underneath a log that had like a 3-foot diameter. Then I woke up because I was cold and I banged my head on the log, so I started crying at the top of my lungs, lost out in the woods. Well, my father reached down and picked me up, and my dad, very strong, big barrel chest, and hairy arms. And I felt very comforted that my father's family was carrying me back to camp. And then we got right to the edge of the camp, edge of the firelight, the light from the Coleman lantern, and I was put down on my feet and pushed forward. And I saw my mother playing cards under the Coleman lantern with, the table on our campground, and my father was sitting right across the side of her.
Oh, wow.
And I looked behind me and nobody was there. And so I don't know who or what picked me up. Could have been a human. But my dad had really hairy arms, and I thought it was my dad. I told you about the dreams because when I saw that 12-footer from 6 feet away, turned my car sideways, trying to keep the headlights on, and I said I was drifting before Vin Diesel ever thought about it. I tell people they had very athletic butt cheeks, and they were higher than my face when I slid behind it, because I power slid 60 feet, forgot to push in the clutch because it was a stick, and I stalled the engine, right? The daughter who was in my pregnant wife, who was terrified and hysterical, has anxiety and anger control issues to this day, unexplained. I think it was trauma in the womb. But I never told you about the woo factor, because I'm a science teacher, or I was, and I believe that Gigantopithecus is the line of Bigfoot. Came across the Beringian land bridge when the polar ice caps got big and the ocean levels went down. There was a land bridge between Alaska, the Bering Strait, is a chain of islands that when the ocean went down was a bridge between Russia and Alaska. I believe Bigfoot came across that with a jaw and thousands of molars. There is no way to freaking know whether or not Giganto was upright or not, or if he was as intelligent as what we refer to as Sasquatch. So Giganto could have been quadrupedal and bipedal and extremely intelligent and in direct competition for what became modern day humans, who I think modern day humans tried to kill off Giganto, and that's why Bigfoot keeps away from us, because we almost exterminate him like we did the mammoth and all that. But back to the woo factor. When I turned my car sideways and was sliding, I think there was a second Bigfoot, because I think I saw something through its eyes. Now I gotta tell you, I've had 3 different people when I'm dreaming and having a nightmare sleeping next to me, woke up screaming, having the exact same nightmare. I think I transmit and link up with their brains. I've had 2 different girlfriends standing, one riding next to me, one in my arms. Well, I was thinking something but did not say anything, and they either answered a question or they got mad at me for what I was thinking, even though I didn't say it out loud, like a former girlfriend's name when you're kissing somebody else. And so somehow I link up with people. And I think there was a second Bigfoot, because somehow, as I was sliding past it, I saw the backside of the Bigfoot, and I saw it from a 45-degree angle at the same time. I saw the front and the big barrel chest and all that stuff. And I wasn't on that side of the Bigfoot. I saw double vision overlapped. Backside, big thing, huge. Front side, barrel chested with his hand lifted up. I saw it from the front. So I think it had something with it, and that she was terrified and somehow linked with my brain. And I've never ever told this story because it sounds like people think you're nuts just because you saw one. And you can get fired from your job if you work for a government agency. And I don't know, I've also had another woo thing. I live 5 miles from what's called the Meat Hole. It's a salmon fishing hole right off the Lewis River, outside of Woodland by the grist mill. And I saw the lights. You know, people talk about orbs. I was salmon fishing until it got dark. I got a back injury, so I have to sit in the director's fold-out camping chair. Well, I don't live 4 miles away, and it was such a nice night with beautiful stars and water gurgling by. So I decided to stay after all the other fishermen left, and that's when the colored lights came on. About a half a mile, quarter of a mile downstream where the river turned, they were up, coming out of the trees, over the trees, chasing each other, changing colors, blink off, blink on. I saw red, I saw teal, purple was the coolest, blue and green, and I got them on my cell phone. And I'm a science teacher. I've heard people saying that orbs, you know, the will-o'-the-wisp, don't fall in the woods, they'll lead you to your death. Or they see orbs when there's Bigfoot around. I sat there and I filmed it with my camera. Even came back the next night. It was after dark, after all the salmon fishermen had left, coming on the same stretch of the river, and I even filmed it with a tripod and a camera and found out I got a better, you know, my cell phone did a better job than the high-def camera. So I can't explain it. And it's really frustrating as a science person to try to figure out what's the deal with the lights. I don't know if they were related to Sasquatch at all, but I got to tell you, after the lights, if I heard even a little snap behind me in the dark, I finally decided I got creeped out and I had to go home. And one last thing, anybody here believe in Dogman? Because I live in Woodland and I thought there's no freaking way that Dogman, there's no evolutionary line for upright canid, blah, blah, blah. But there's a guy on YouTube, a Native American from the Umatilla tribe, over by Hermiston. He posted a YouTube video of himself talking in his cell phone.
I watched that.
Yeah, and this really loud coyote, it was like 100 times louder than normal, started cackling like a laughing hyena in an old Tarzan movie from the old days with Johnny Weissmuller. Well, I got goosebumps just seeing it. So I come home from work in the dark, 5 miles out in the country, up and down valleys, and the coyotes are going off, and I just sit at night listening outside on my deck to the coyotes and the frogs in the pond. And this one coyote is right behind me up on the hill, and it's like 1,000 times louder than the coyote. And it sounds like a female coyote calling the boys in for a night on the town, if you know what I mean. Like she's trying to seduce them for, you know, really either a little fun or to eat them afterwards like a black widow spider. And it started laughing, and it started cackling, and when it did, I dropped my cell phone. I was recording it. I dropped my cell phone because I got hit with tingling goosebumps all the way from my head down to my toes. And I found out later on because a guy saw me downloading Sasquatch Chronicles on my podcast because I don't get internet where I live or cell signal. So I download podcasts from you guys to listen to at night. And he came over to ask if I was here because of the car that was abandoned. Some director left his car here. Are you here to pick it up? I go, oh, no. I said, I just lived down the corner. I said, 10th a mile away. I don't get a cell signal or TV. So I'm downloading a podcast. He says, what do you listen to? I go, well, I don't want to tell you. It's kind of embarrassing. He looks at me, he goes, you listen to Sasquatch Chronicles? What are the odds, right? And I go, really? And he goes, God, I love that show. I go, I'm MT from episode 102. He goes, I just listened to that the other day on the archives. I didn't know you lived a 10th of a mile away. I go, hey, have you ever seen anything else around here? Because he said his neighbor stepped off his door one morning to check on the cows and something yelled at him from the tree line. I go, no, I mean something else. Because I've had stuff happen on my trailer recently. But,
In chems.
yeah, I told him about the really super loud coyote that was sounded 100 times louder. It was calling all the boys in for a good time, but then it started laughing like a hyena. He goes, really? You heard that? He goes, when did you hear that? I go, a couple weeks ago. He goes, well, there are these two really nice young Mormon girls I know, in their 20s, because we're in our 60s, so they're girls. He goes, they were on their way home from a church meeting one night, and they saw an upright, wolf-headed, hairy creature, 7 feet tall, walk in front of their car on its hind legs. And I go, dog man? He goes, yeah. I go, oh my God, where was that? He goes, about 300 feet down the road. So it's like, really? So now, it's bad enough when you got to worry about Bigfoot, But I gotta tell you, just going to work in the morning, I work in Dallas County, so I drive to work in the dark, I get home in the dark, and I live way out in the country, and I see deer right by my house. I get nervous going out to my car in the morning and getting out of my car when I come home, because I'm always waiting to get grabbed from behind and drug into the trees or something like that. So. But I had to share the woo stuff, because I've never told it before.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Good job.
Squatchaholics Anonymous.
Squatchaholic Anonymous.
I'm MT, I'm a Squatchaholic.
Okay. There we got another. Yeah, come on up. Thank you. I'm an advocate for game cams. I know a lot of people are saying that you can't get photos of Sasquatch on game cams, but you know, I've seen them on there, and people are getting them. So don't give up on that. I mean, just because it didn't happen that one time or another time, I advocate that you should. I started with one, and now I got two, and I'm going to get two more, and I'm just going to set them up in my research area and keep going, and just that's the way to do it. It's the best thing to do, I think. Let's hear your story.
I got lots, but I'm only going to do one.
Excellent, thank you.
No, if you pour me a couple stiff drinks, then I might give up.
Oh, okay. Well, we should turn that into a bar. That'd be great.
Probably my favorite, and my wife and I and friends love to go squatching. I get laughed at all the time, so any of you that get ridiculed, who cares? We have fun. So 2016, we bought a side-by-side, and our friends and family still live in Lewiston, Idaho area, so we wanted to hook up with those guys and go down riding in that particular area. We're going to camp 2 nights out in kind of the forest, but right off logging roads and pretty well traveled and all that stuff. Huge amounts of clear cut where we were, and we were in a logging machinery area. There was one huge, I don't know what they call them, skid steer, big wheels with notches on them and stuff. Yeah, so we were out there, and we went riding, rode till about 9:30 at night, come back, it's pretty much pitch black. I think that was in May, right? Yeah. So it was pretty much pitch black. So we make our dinner, we're all sitting by a big fire, and we're just having a chit chat. We're not talking about Bigfoot or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, my ears perk up, because off in the distance, I hear the classic howl. And then right after that, underneath, you kind of start hearing the coyote chip, and I'm like, did you hear that? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, what? And they're like, what are you guys talking about? I'm like, the howl with the coyotes. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's coyotes, but there was something else there. So they're all ridiculing us, and we're talking about it and what it is and what they might be, but they're making fun of us, and it was a lot of fun. So we all go to bed that night, get up the next morning, make a great breakfast, then we go ride for about 4.5 hours. Now this was me, my wife, our friends, 2 friends, their son's best friend, and that's just us right there. So we go ride, we come back, and we all roll into camp. Now Michael, which is their son, his wife is at the camp. She'd been at the camp for about an hour and a half waiting for us. She does hair and all that stuff for her, and she had a wedding to do. So she came up later. So she was no part of this. There's no phone service up there. There's no nothing. There's no communication or anything going on. So we ride in there, we wave. She's down at the end of the camp, and she waves Michael over. She's like, come here. And he goes down there, and then all of a sudden he's like, what? And then he calls me. He's like, Ken, come here. You got to hear this. And I'm like, what? So I go down there, and Aaron starts to tell me the story. So where we're camped, right across the road, there is a little stand of trees, maybe half acre or so like that. She's like, oh my gosh, there's been so much commotion going on over there, and like rustling around and snapping, and then all of a sudden like a tree branch got broken, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, where? So she points, and I'm like, okay guys, let's go. Now of course, I always have a pistol on my side and all that.
That's okay.
And all that stuff, but I had taken it off and I didn't have anything. So we go sprinting across the road and kind of checking it out. Now first we're not seeing anything. So we get to the back of the stand. This is where it starts to get fun. So we get to the back of the stand, and we're under a bunch of big pine trees, and it's just a huge canopy. Nothing can fall out of it. And all of a sudden, Dustin, he goes, what the heck is this? And so we all walk up over there, and I'm like, So what we see is about a, 4.5, 5 foot fresh treetop with the green pine needles that haven't, you know, got brown or anything like that, that had been snapped off and stabbed into the ground about 5 inches. And I'm like, I go into training mode, because these guys were all making fun of me the night before. So I'm like, where do you think that came from? You know, because I know that the trees are right here, and they're like, well, nobody, you know, not from here, didn't fall out of a tree or anything. I'm like, well, let's go around and look for this. So we kind of start going, walking around trying to find it, and we kind of get back to the back. And I don't know why I didn't notice before, but as we're walking back up there's several things we saw. I stopped dead in my tracks, huge footprint in the dirt right there. I turn around, Michael, what size boot you wear? It's like 13. I'm like, come here. He's like, oh, holy shit. You know, and it's like, I'm like, put that up there. So he puts it beside it, and it's probably 2.5 inches longer than his footprint. Now we find 2 more of those looking around, and then we find the structure stuff, you know, huge X's, big tree lanes, and then finally up towards the road where initially Erin thought she heard all that stuff, we found the one tree top that we thought looked like it was missing, like the rest of them had. So we go back, and we're going back to where that thing was stabbed into the ground, and there's about 3 foot grass when you exit out of there, and I'm like, man, it looks like something walked right out of here. So we start following through this thing, and Michael and I are kind of down and looking and see if we can see footprints, and you can kind of see it. We're spreading the grass and whatnot, and Dustin's right there with us, but all of a sudden he just screams, look! And I'm like, so we look at him, right? Because we don't know what he's doing, and then he points, look, look, look! And he's like, did you see that? And we're like, did you see what? You know, and sure enough, these guys who made fun of me the night before, he's the guy, and all this time that we out, he thinks he sees a Sasquatch, and it's probably 3 or 4, maybe even 500 yards away. It's a long way, but it's all clear cut, and we could see the evidence of footprints that had walked out there across the little road that was right next to this side cut road, and then up over all the slag and stuff they have. But the beautiful thing was, I'm like, where was it? What did you see? A huge upright figure walking on the road that was way down there. The 2 beautiful parts about that is, for me, was like, there's a snag right off the side of the road, and the road was probably 2 or 3 feet higher than the ground around it, and this snag was probably about 12 foot tall. So maybe from the road level it was only about 9 foot tall, and so he's like, well, it was almost as tall as that tree from this perspective that we were at, and then it walked right behind that, and then 5 or 6 feet or whatever it was, and just 2 strides, 3 strides, I guess, and then in behind the big bushes and was gone. So I was like, you gotta be kidding me. How is it that I'm a believer, have seen a lot, collected a lot, and all that stuff, and some other guy gets
all the glory.
Gets the prize. Anyway, that's my story.
That was great. Wait before you go. I'm going to interject with them a little bit. I can't help it. So that was recently, it sounds like.
That was 2016.
Wow. And was that close by to Kelso, Longview? I mean...
No, that was in Idaho. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Outside of Kendrick, Idaho, so probably... we have property up there now, but outside of Kendrick, Idaho, so you're up in the mountains, probably out of Kendrick, 18 miles, 20 miles, maybe tops.
And do you go back to that location?
Yeah, we just bought property there. Let me tell you, so when we walked our property, we saw evidence. We didn't see any footprints, but...
Make sure you grab my card. I'm on that table back there,
okay,
where these guys are right here.
All right.
And if you do, I'll come over and investigate with you. You know, I got a drone. I'm a professional cameraman, and I have all good, really good high-def equipment. I got a new camera that is 60x, so I can zoom the top of mountains with crystal clear footage and stuff. So
I will do it.
love to that. Great story. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, let's bring up the next speaker here. This is getting good. We're just getting going. Oh, she's coming. Here we go. We got 2. Okay. All right. Well, let's let her go first, and then you can go right after her. Ladies first.
Which one is this? They both say the same thing.
Okay, here we go. There you go.
So I'm trying to get my husband to come
Just hold your microphone right up close so they can hear you.
because it's something maybe one of you guys who's a hunter has experienced but not thought about it. Him and his buddy, they went hunting, elk hunting in the Panhandle of Idaho, and they shot an elk, And they went back and they had to quarter it. And it was getting warm. It was in October 1983. And my husband, he says, I'm just going to take my jacket or my shirt off and leave it on here so we can see it as we come in. Well, they took half of the elk out and came back for the other part. The elk was gone. And they're like, what in the heck? So they're looking all over for their elk. No drag marks, nothing. But they smelled a stench, like a bad smell. And
Sasquatch stench.
we didn't know. We've never heard of Sasquatch.
It smells like wet dogs and swamp is what they say. And maybe even worse.
But anyways, so they thought, it has to be here. Let's just circle around. So they went round and around. He said it was about 100 yards. And they finally found it. Well, he's seen branches that was heaped up and over. And he thought, wow, that's really strange. They were heaped over and he lifted up. It was the other half of that elk. There was no slide marks like a bear would drag it. It had to be something that lifted that half an elk and carried it 100 yards. And it was steep. If you've ever been in some of the hunting areas in northern Idaho, it's very steep. And that's exactly where this whatever carried it. And Rod said what was really bad is when he lifted it up, his shirt was there and there's scant on it. He never knew it.
Wow.
He had no idea. He thought, this is really weird. Rod.
So they marked the shirt, or it marked the shirt.
Yeah, and they
Wow.
had covered it up, but as far as I was, and
Too bad you guys didn't get photos of that.
it was in 1983, and I don't think our camera or our cell phones had that.
Yeah, not back then, yeah. Well, that's a really compelling encounter there. Thank you so much.
I don't know if anyone else has experienced anything like that, but anyway.
Yeah, that was a good story. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Welcome, welcome. I like your hat. You just hold yourself up right here if you need to. Yeah.
This happened quite a while ago, and it kind of relates to the lady who was from Humboldt County, because it was a very similar experience. I lived in Eureka, California, and my parents and family lived in San Jose, so I drove Highway 101 constantly back and forth between the two in order to visit my mom. And
Let's date the time period. Just give us a date.
oh, Jesus, 40 years ago. It's a
Okay,
long time.
thank you.
So, this happened in daylight, though, unlike hers. I was driving down 101. Something came from the west side of the highway. It was no further away than that curtain. Crossed the road in about 3 strides. I'm hitting my brakes. As I'm hitting my brakes, he steps down into a ditch. And he's standing there, and I'm going this way, looking at him, as he's walking this way, looking at me. And he was in a ditch that was about 2.5 feet deep, and he towered over my car. It was
So at least
Chevy Impala, but it wasn't
8 foot, 9 foot, somewhere around there.
somewhere in the 8-foot vicinity. I hit my brakes. He was going this way, and there was a dirt road going up the hill. So he turned on the dirt road and was walking up the hill. And I was able to turn my car around, did a wide turn, came back, came up the hill and up the dirt road after him. And he was maybe half a football field ahead of me. And I'm gaining on him, but I'm not, trying to run him down or anything. He kind of stopped, looked around and gave me kind of a, oh crap, look.
Yeah, you spotted him and he spotted you.
Yes, and so he stepped off into the underbrush and disappeared into the woods. I parked and got out and looked around, didn't see anything, didn't see any footprints, anything like that. But got that definite feeling that you were being watched and that he really wasn't welcoming me too much at all. And the things that impressed me most about it was the looseness of his limbs, very fluid limb movement.
Bending of the arms and legs and
Kind of
everything.
like Gomer Pyle in the old TV
Wow.
series.
I've heard that before though.
Loose movement.
Yeah.
When he was going uphill, I could see the bottom of his feet. He was just like that. Dusty, much lighter than the rest of his body.
Oh, the pads on his feet.
Pads on his feet. I couldn't see toes.
Yeah.
I could see the pads on his feet, and there was no, whatever you call that part where the heel was.
Mid-tarsal break.
And all that. And there was nothing. It was flat. It was like he was wearing a pair of slippers or something. It was just a flat thing.
So they build up a really thick skin on the bottom of their feet, and the thing about the patty film, Jeff Meldrum talks about it in his presentations, is when she lifts her foot up and you can see the back pad of her feet, it was all white. And back in 1967 they shot that with a 16 millimeter film, and so that's a good correlation right there to your sighting and that sighting.
And the other thing is, this guy could have been a Chippendale. He had incredible...
It was a male.
I'm assuming it was a male because...
Did you see breasts?
No. But he had incredible thigh muscle, and these are glutes, right?
Yeah.
Just perfectly molded. I mean, he could pose. If you shaved him, he could pose.
Oh man, more and more people are saying this, so that's amazing. That's really amazing sighting.
So, I mean, all in all, I probably saw him for about 15, 20 seconds from a car moving, but, and it happened a long time ago, but I remember it incredibly vividly.
Have you had any other experiences?
Well,
Oh no.
my dad and I were flying in a private plane over Shasta, in the Shasta area, and I looked out the side window, and there were two people, maybe, but I think they were Sasquatch, high above the snow line, and they were totally dark. They had no snow equipment. They weren't carrying skis.
No ropes or anything?
Nothing. There was a large one and a smaller one. And I said, Dad, look at that. And he looked at it, and we looped Shasta, and we came back, there was nothing. Wow. They were gone, and they were high up in the snowfield, so I'm not sure where they could have gone to.
Thank you so much for your experience. That was great. Now, what I'd really like to do is this gentleman is back in the room who came up and talked to me a little bit earlier when he was talking to Jeff Meldrum. And if you guys could give him a real big welcome to come up here and tell you his compelling story. If we can get him to do it, you are going to be in for a treat. And you're going to be blown away. It's just amazing. Thank you so much for sticking around and doing this for me. I really appreciate it. You can sit right here if you'd like.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, here's your mic. Just tell me your name.
Ladies and gentlemen, for
Right over here.
our procession.
There we go. Thank you.
I'm 64 years old, and I've lived here in Cowlitz County all my life. My name is Bill Brenner, and I live up in Coal Creek area. My family's been up there for over 100 years, and I'm going to share a couple things with you, and I'm going to try to keep it brief rather than let it linger on. I have never seen Bigfoot, but I know that there's something up in those mountains, and I don't know what it is, but there's something there. I was just speaking to a lady out here at the insurance, and she said that her uncle had seen one up there, and I was shocked to hear the location. So I'll start my story, and I'm going to go back a little ways. I was 14 years old. This is back in 1972. Myself and 4 other boys had just got out of school, but there had been an article in the Daily News about a plane crash up in the Coal Creek area between Montyhan, by the Montyhan and over the road going over to Abernathy. Does any of you know that area that I'm speaking of up at the end of Coal Creek? It's quite desolate. At any rate, we decided that this plane crash had been found. We wanted to go check this out, you know. So we made our plans, we loaded our motorcycles up, got our camp gear, and we take off. Long story short, we get up, take the fire roads up, and we knew the general location, and it was pretty easy to follow because of all the emergency vehicles that had been up there, and they had removed bodies and etc. So we got up there, and all we knew is that to find this plane, is that we had to look for top trees. So when we got there, we got off the bikes and we started looking around, and immediately we noticed that it was dead silent. There was no sounds, there was no squirrels, there was no chipmunks, there was no birds chirping, it was just dead silent. And we thought that kind of odd, being country boys. And so we happened to go up and we found an old hunting cabin that was partially down, so we rode our bikes up to where this hunting cabin was, fixed it up, and then we went out looking for the plane, and we found the top trees, found the area, found the plane, and we went back to camp, got our provisions out, and anyway, bedded down. So we figured we're just going to scope out the area the next day. Well, where this camp was on an area right on a knob, and over the bank there was a dried up slough. Slough is covered with old skunk cabbage, but it was pretty well dried up. And we thought, this is really odd. There's this area, but no frogs, nothing. Dead silence the whole time we're there. There wasn't nothing. And it kind of made our skin crawl. We thought, this is weird. Something's wrong here. We all felt that something was wrong. There was a presence. So we bedded down. We finally got to sleep, and it was fortunately there was a full moon that night. And this is in like September, October, I believe, if I remember correctly. But in the middle of the night, we heard real heavy, something walking, and it was not on four, it was definitely bipedal, it was upright, it wasn't shuffling like a bear would shuffle, there was no sound that we could make out, but my eyes flew open, and my hair is standing up on the back of my head. Every hair on my body is just feels like pincushions. And I look over, and the guys that I'm with, they're all the same way. Their eyes are all wide open. And I'm pointing, and they're all pointing. And we're listening to this, and it's coming from like the slough area. It's coming up, we're on this knob, and we hear this walk up to this hunting camp, this little camp. It's all made out of biscuit. And walked up and stopped, and we thought, my God, this thing, whatever this is out there, is going to come through the bisqueen wall, and that's the end of us, We're just kids. We're 14, 15 years old. It walked around, ended up moving again, and walked around to the back side of us while I'm trying to look and crane my head back, and the moon is straight above, and I'm trying to see what it is. And now the strange part comes. We could hear it. We could hear each step that it took, and you could hear it. And it stopped. And we all stayed staring at that wall till daylight, and we never heard it leave. Wow. And there was nothing. We got up, we walked around looking for prints. We went, trying to check out, and we're used to looking for deer, elk, whatever. But all we wanted to do was just get the hell out of there. So we were all just scared. We went back, told our parents, it was probably a bear. It was, you guys are okay. No, there was something else. So. There's a local family named Forrest, and they own Wood Stoves Warehouse, and Scott Forrest owns that. And his dad at the time, they lived up on Columbia Heights, and I knew his dad, and he was inquiring about the plane wreck. And he said, "Did you get over the plane wreck?" I said, "Yes, I did." And he says, "Well, I'd like to go up and salvage the aluminum off of it." And I said, "Mr. Forrest, there's something up there. You want to be careful, take a gun with you. Oh, I'll take my dog. And I said, no, there's something up there. I don't know what it is, but there's something up there. Something ain't right, because the area is dead silent. It's just like, it's like a dead zone. And he kind of just brushed it off. Anyway, he ends up going up, and he took his dog with him. Okay, I'll speed up. Anyway, anyway, he went up to the area. The dog immediately ran underneath the pickup, wouldn't come out. He made one trip and left and never went back. And he said, there's something wrong up there. Now then, what I was going to is I'm going to speed ahead I'm going to jump over one other thing, back to 1998. And this was in the Daily News. And myself, a gentleman by the name of Randy Trusty and Dave Hart, we went out deer hunting. And we were down by Cape Horn, Little Cape Horn, Waukegan County line, and Cowlitz County off Spruce Creek. And we were out at the end, back out there. Anyway, we happened to come out at the end of this road, and we all got out, got our gear, and I happened to look, and there was this area that was all torn up, and probably about a 10-12 circumference. And laying off to the side, I noticed that there was a large huckleberry bush, probably about 6 feet high. So I walked over to it and I looked at it and I picked it up and I said, check this out. And they said, oh, somebody probably just ripped it out with a chain or, all the bark around the ends of it, nothing is damaged. It's just like something reached down, picked it up and ripped it out of the ground. And once again, dead silence. There's no noise. Everything is totally silent. And I told the guys, I said, guys, there's something wrong here. And they said, well, let's just cut down here and we'll leave. So we look at find a game trail. We start down this game trail, and we started seeing like where something had walked. And I'm not Tinkerbell, but anyway, we started making out like tracks. And we started looking, and there was vine maple and stuff that's all twisted up, and we were like making a comment about this.
Yep, things you can explain with bear dogs.
We go down and went farther down in, and when we got down in there, whatever it was off, and it kept circling us. And it would go back and around and kept circling us, and we finally decided to get the hell out of there. Because, once again, dead silence, something's wrong. And we went back 3 times once to get pictures and to get a cast of a print where they had me jump up in the air and come down about 2 feet away from it to see if I could make an impression, and I couldn't. But the cast is in the Daily News, and you guys can Google this or go to the library, because I tried, but it's under Dave Hart, Randy Trusty, and the story is there, the print's there, and I believe it was sent off to the Grade 8, Northern Grade 8 Project or something of that.
Yeah, that's the Cliff Barrickman Museum.
I'm sorry?
Cliff Barrickman's Museum?
Okay, it could be. It's been too many years ago. 1998.
Okay.
But it was during hunting season, and anyway, I sat on this, and I heard about this the first time I've been to Squatch Fest, and I told my little woman, I said, I got to go share this.
Absolutely.
I've been laughed at. I said, been called an idiot, and oh yeah, all the doubting Thomases. So I've shared this with you now, and maybe some of you might have had a similar experience, but I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. That was great. Well, Bill just came up and said we got to wrap it up. We're going to try to make Talking Squatch longer next year. I'm going to try and go for 90 minutes instead of an hour. It goes by so quick, I didn't even get to show my video. So tomorrow, if you're here, in between, we're going to have half-hour breaks, and I'm going to show it then. So I'm sorry I didn't get to show it to you, but it's not completely done. So next year, I'm going to have it completely done, and I will show it then. And tomorrow, I'm going to show a little bit of it. I should be able to get in 10 to 15 minutes of my video tomorrow. And so I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I hope you guys come out tomorrow. And if not, we'll see you next year. And I just want to thank everybody here from Kelso and Longview. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.